Well, yeah, like you said, it's been the Republicans have been in the minority in the New York State Assembly since Watergate, and in the time I've been there, we've been as high as just breaking the supermajority by one vote, and as low as 43 votes, and so I knew what I was getting into. I knew I was going to be deeply in the minority in our chamber, but look, I think number one, as a young lawmaker, when I first got elected, I was the youngest person serving in either of our two chambers at that time. So I think there was a generational divide as well, like trying to bring those issues that my peers were dealing with, affording homes, things that now like childcare and all those types of things. And I think that over time, I've come to know who on the other side of the aisle is interested in the same types of issues as me. So when I have an idea and, if I need a partner on the other side of the aisle, at this point I have pretty much a mental Rolodex of people that I know have legislated in those areas before or the people that I know can get an idea across the finish line.
So in West Virginia, we've only been in the minority for 10 years, ever in the whole history of the state. And so it flipped in 2014. And then when I came in, I knew we were going to be in the minority, but it was within a 15 vote margin. So bills were still at play. Everything still mattered depending on the issue. You could, get folks on either side. Bills died on the floor all the time. Everybody worked together. The day that I came in, my caucus got cut in half. And so we went into the superminority that day. So I wasn't expecting to be in the very tiny minority, but I knew I was going to be in the minority, but that was fine. And yeah, coming in, it's been very interesting. And kind of like what Ed said, we had a lot of people who are now in the majority that remember life in the minority. They're a lot nicer than the folks who I came in with that didn't know life being out of the majority. So that's always a really interesting time. I would say the biggest misconception in politics in my state, but also nationally, is that we fight all the time. Most of the issues are bipartisan, most of the issues are unanimous, most of them are very boring, and it's, getting the money to pave the roads. Those are things most of the things we don't fight about. The things you see on the news are the contentious things, that's why they're news. Most of the time, it's not fighting, and we all get along for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree. Most of us get along, we're friendly with each other. We can have a heated debate about an issue in the chamber and, be having a glass of wine with each other an hour later. That stuff, for the most part, people can leave the politics in the chamber and connect with each other, socially, personally. And I think that goes a long way. Just remembering that, whether it's internal with your colleagues or just external with our constituents and voters, like we're all people. We all have a lot of the same things we deal with on a day-to-day basis with our families and all of that type of stuff. And if you remember, we're all human beings, and I think it's easier to leave the policy and the politics as the policy and the politics and not something personal.
I think the most important thing is getting to know people on a personal level, and I think that's not just politics, right? That's anywhere. That's getting to know somebody without showing up and asking them for something. We knock on people's doors and ask them to vote for us. That's not how you don't get to know people that way. You're not having deep conversations. That's with anything. So it starts with getting to know them on a personal level and not showing that you're just there because you need their vote, because you legitimately care about them, which is how we form those friendships too. And then you can find out what issues you work on together. But that's a good life skill, just getting to know people without wanting something from them.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. You have to talk to people. One of my favorite things about our end of session, I don't like the way we save everything towards the end and we're in session 12, 15 hours a day. But one of the nice things about that time of year is, I'll go and sit down next to somebody that I don't know that well for 15 minutes and just talk to them. And that's how I've gotten to know a lot of my colleagues. One of the other things that was great, when I first got elected, we had 27 new members between both sides of the aisle. Out of a chamber of 150, that's a pretty sizable number of people. And there was a core group of us, probably a handful on either side of the aisle, that became very friendly with each other. So we decided that summer and fall, we wanted to have like some of the upstate people come downstate, and they came downstate, and we had New York City colleagues take them to housing projects and schools that didn't have enough space and where the kids were learning in trailers, and then they went upstate and they visited farms, and it just humanized everybody and made you realize really sometimes issues that come across as political, that maybe you support something or don't support something, has a lot more to do with my district is very different than yours, and so I think that's really important in a geographically diverse state to really understand where we're all coming from. Yeah, that's definitely an issue when you think about that. There's almost a majority within the majority party that are from New York City, and you put in the other big cities, Albany, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. They could be a majority of the chamber in and of themselves. As somebody who's, in the suburbs, but really not far from New York City, I'm a 40-minute train ride. My district border is probably only 5 miles from the Queens border. It's a different world politically in a lot of ways, but I think we also realize that's the economic driver. So when we're talking about budgets and we're talking about all that type of stuff, New York City is an essential part of that. But it does line up a lot geographically. A lot of our upstate members are on my side of the aisle. Downstate, a lot of the city is obviously predominantly Democratic, but Long Island, it's a little more red, but there's definitely a large bipartisan delegation from Long Island. So I think I get the opportunity to see it from both sides.
Are you able to pass bills for just one area of the state, or is it statewide?
Occasionally, yes. We'll do a bill that's specific to a certain part of the state. Like we actually just had something this past session that other parts of the state were like, we're not crazy about it. It was a very pro-labor, but it was an issue that out-of-state contractors were working on projects, and we wanted to protect the good union jobs and so we were like, you know what? Instead of trying to fight this battle on a statewide, the delegation on both sides of the aisle were like, we support this, and so we pushed it just as a Long Island thing. Oftentimes, stuff that's the city delegations want, they'll just do a New York City bill.
That's cool.
I think it definitely has changed over the time I've been in office, in terms of that tension, and especially when during the midterms of President Trump's first term was when our state Senate flipped from Republican to Democrat, and both chambers were a tinderbox. There were bills that had been bills that would pass for the Assembly and were dead on arrival for the Senate for years, and all of a sudden they were ramming all this stuff through, and a lot of people were really feeling like the newfound power and everything, and it did have a major impact on the tone and temperature in the chamber. But I think the way we insulate ourselves from that is what we were talking about before. It's just talking to people, not demonizing them, not treating everything, making everything so personal. And one of the problems in the interim time we had was then we went into COVID, and people are on Zooms, and basically a term went by where these new colleagues that you had were only faces on a screen. Mm-hmm. You had never actually interacted with them on a personal level, and we had some of the I think most off the rails debates I remember in my time in office during that time, because people didn't know each other as human beings. They were faces on a screen, and it lent itself to being very personal in attacks on each other.
Yeah, my whole first session we had masks on, and so I didn't know what a lot of my colleagues even looked like. The second year, you'd be like, "Oh, you have a beard." You had no clue, but yeah, it does allow you to be a lot less personal, right? And kind of more how people behave online rather than in person, I think, is a big. And I think the temperature just nationally kind of ramped up at that time too. I try to build resilience and insulate away from national politics by educating my constituents and educating people in the state about how different the state is. I live in the capital city. I live near the pretty close to the Capitol, and my people I know will be like, how's DC? And I'm like, I work in that building, not the one behind me right now, that looks exactly like it, by the way, same architect, but looks just like that. And so a lot of people just don't pay enough attention to the legislature, and that's not their fault, and then they feel shame about that. And so I think a big part of our job is to educate people on how we do this, and I think the not knowing drives a lot of fear, and so if we can just make things easier for people to comprehend, you can kind of turn the temperature down a little bit.
For me, it's usually on the social media side of things, because I'm in a very crowded media market. So at least in terms of our daily newspaper that we have for Long Island, we have 22 assembly members that cover Long Island. We have 9 state senators covering that, competing for coverage with 4 Congress people. So it's hard to get attention on something you're working on. Like the more small local papers, they'll run your op-eds and let you put a column in and that type of stuff. But to get a wider reach is a little tough. But I think in terms of our press pool in Albany, over time, and I tell new members this, if they want a quote on something, even if it's not necessarily my core area, I'll give it to them, because when I want to get something out, I want to have that relationship with those reporters. So I'd rather comment on whatever the story of the day is and build the relationships than say, oh, you know what, that's not really something I'm interested in.
I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a politician that has trouble getting in front of a microphone. But generally speaking, I do think social media is the best way. At least in my state, local media is we've lost so many papers. We've lost so much local journalism around the country. And so social media is a really easy way for us to just get directly in front of people. My social media, I've noticed, I serve a lot more than just my constituents. But then it's more statewide because we're a lot smaller. But also, there's a lot of constituents that I didn't think would be on TikTok or didn't think would be on Instagram, and so it's cool to get to meet people that way too. But it's also just kind of democratized how we can reach people. We can be a lot more authentic. We don't have to be so shiny and polished all the time. We can really show our lives and get to show behind the scenes of what we do, so then people get another kind of entry point to see how we do our jobs.
Well, I would say when I first got elected, this is on the healthcare side of things, and obviously we're talking a lot about Medicaid right now in terms of what the big beautiful bill and how that ends up in terms of Medicaid funding and stuff like that. But it was right after Obamacare had passed and was being implemented, and whether it was setting up exchanges, whether we were going to be a Medicaid expansion state, all that type of stuff, that had such national attention, and you talk about national politics seeping in, and over time a lot of that stuff has just become the norm of what our state program looks like. So I feel like that was something that had calmed down for quite a while, and now maybe it's swinging back the other way because of what's going on nationally.
Yeah, I would say in my state, it's a lot. The majority controls the narrative, as they do in every state, and it's been a lot of follow the leader of what the big national social issues are, because those are the things that drive out the base, particularly in an election year. I know in Dem-led states it's the same way on the other end. I find a lot of those social bills don't really help people, so I want to work on things that actually solve problems and want to help people that way. I worked on a bill, one of my first sessions, we had a ban on nuclear energy, and we repealed the ban because we want to continue to be an energy producing state, and that doesn't mean get rid of coal, that just means we want more options.
Well, I would start with this, read about what's been going on the last couple of days here, where you have all these young legislators from all over the country who have come to this summit with a spirit of bipartisanship and learning from each other. And I mean, we've seen it. Many of us are in, high-ranking leadership positions within our party and are still wanting to find common ground and ways to work with the other side. And I'll tell you, when we launched our Future Caucus, I got emails from people from all over the state like, this is exactly what I want to see right now with everything that's going on. It really helps renew my faith in government and what it can be. My other thing, this is more of a pet thing, but if you're younger, get on Netflix or HBO Max and watch The West Wing, because I'm a big West Wing guy, and it's an idealistic view of government. It's never bothered me that the politics were like the opposite of me. We should aspire to just have honest policy discussions and not get so personal and not want politics to be a blood sport when we're just always fighting and yelling at each other.
I watch West Wing when I'm sad about government. And it does help restore my faith, honestly. Jed Bartlett, maybe my favorite president. I mean, I would agree. It's so good to see all the young lawmakers here. And I think before I got involved in politics, I didn't realize what a massive privilege it is to be able to do public service. And I didn't think about service in the same way that I did. I just thought it would be interesting, and I was fiery and would throw bombs at the other side, but I had nothing to lose, right? And then I got into office and realized, okay, most people aren't like that. It's fun to get that little dopamine hit, but that's not real life. And people are in the middle, and we both represent, no matter what party we're in, we both represent people from all over the place, and that's a massive privilege to get to do that. And so we need people in public service that are willing to do that and willing to step up, and we need lots of great people in office.
There really is no greater feeling when you're in elected office than, when you've helped a constituent, you've helped them solve a problem, whether it's a big problem or a small problem. And a lot of times that makes all the frustrations and the negatives worth it. So if you're a civically minded person and, you feel like you can make a difference, and like I always say, I've been doing this for 15 years, and people say, how long you want to do this? As long as there's still issues I care about that I feel like I can have an impact on, I want to keep doing this.
Yeah, and you shouldn't let being in a state where if you get elected, you're going to be in the minority. Don't let that stop you at all. You can still do so much. You can still do so many constituent services and help people. Whether your name's on a bill or not, it doesn't matter. You can still make a massive impact for people, and that tangibly matters and changes people's lives. It's wild that the things we get to do genuinely change people's lives, and I don't know how many people get to say that.